lot of federal judge W's. This one from a Trump-appointed judge is a federal judge rejects Tennessee's anti-drag law as too broad and vague. So this happened just recently. Now, we saw that there was an injunction last month from this, and now this has been sent up to the district court, and the district court agreed with that. There was a judge that blocked it, and now he rejected their bill. So their bill is no longer in effect, and it cannot be enforced, the anti-drag bill. So there's a difference between blocked and banned, I guess, or blocked or rejected. You can block something temporarily. So last month they temporarily blocked it, and now it's just outright rejected. So, I mean, it's pretty obvious why they rejected it. First of all, it violates free speech. The reason why it violates free speech is because Tennessee already has obscenity laws. So if like a drag queen was being obscene or being too sexual around children or something like that, Tennessee's obscenity laws that were already on the books long before drag queens became a problem on like the conservative side, they would have captured all of them. It would have fined those businesses and you would have been able to do what you do. But like in 6 years, I think that was like the last one. In 6 years, this company that brought forth the lawsuit, what was their name? Their name was Friends of Georges Incorporated. Go follow them on social media. So they brought forth, like in 6 years, they never had any complaints about like them being around kids. They were never sexual. They were always age appropriate. So then Tennessee drafts this other law, which is basically like a redundant law, but it specifically adds in the fact prurient interest. It adds in the fact that if you are a male or female impersonator, what they see as a drag queen, that is inherently a prurient, I don't know how to pronounce that, a prurient interest. So it's just naturally like you're just automatically sexual by being a drag queen, right? So you just can't be around minors. And then what they did on top of that was that it was basically considered content-based regulation. So instead of the law targeting the businesses that hosted this, it targeted the drag queens themselves. So the drag queens themselves would be the ones that get like hit with something, not with a fine, but with like misdemeanors, sometimes even felonies, instead of like the company like losing their license or something like that. Like that's what would happen. So they're like, okay, you've created this obscenity law that just captures obscenity, and now you're going after drag specifically, even if it's not obscene, and you're just calling it obscene. So that would be considered content-based regulation, which broadly speaking, you don't regulate on the basis of content unless it's like obscene or like based on who's watching it and things like that. So that was the problem that the judge brought up. Obviously, like this, we would apply this to any other scenario. Of course, you're going to apply it to drag queens as well. And then like where it could have gone in the state of Tennessee is pretty wild. Like think about it. Like if you're on TikTok in the state of Tennessee and you're like, let's say you're a drag queen in the state of Tennessee, there's kids on TikTok and they're scrolling through. If they see a drag queen, does that fall under the like, is that like porn to them? Like what's going on? You know, they hate everything cool and fun. Yeah. So that got banned. Matt Walsh is in a hissy fit about it, so we're gonna watch his bitch ass talk about it a little bit.
Good stuff, a lot of victories, but it hasn't all been good. And there have been some setbacks, and here's one. Daily Wire reports a federal judge has ruled Friday that a Tennessee law intended to shield children from sexually explicit performances is unconstitutional. U.S. District Judge Thomas Parker said a law that blocked children from being exposed to adult cabaret performances,
that pesky First Amendment,
including sexually explicit drag shows, was unconstitutionally vague and substantially overbroad. Quote, there's no question that obscenity is not protected by the First Amendment, but there is a difference between material that is obscene in the vernacular and material that is obscene under the law, Parker wrote.
Yep.
Simply put, no majority of the Supreme Court has held that sexually explicit but not obscene speech receives less protection than political, artistic, or scientific speech. Parker, who was appointed by former President Donald Trump, said that the law would also allow discriminatory enforcement.
Yep,
Parker said,
obviously.
quote, whether some of us may like it or not, the Supreme Court has interpreted the First Amendment as protecting speech that is indecent but not obscene. According to a summary of the law, which was signed by Governor Bill Lee, it, quote, creates an offense for a person who engages in an adult cabaret performance on public property or in a location where the adult cabaret performance could be viewed by a person who is not an adult. The definition of adult cabaret performance in the law includes male or female impersonators.
Yeah, so like if you want to like an analogy, let's just say that I like Christian plays. You know the Christian plays, right? Where Jesus is like carrying the cross. I can just define that if I wanted to as like the governor or an attorney general of the state of Tennessee. I can just define those plays as obscene or too graphic for children, or I could just define them as cabaret performances if I wanted to, because the guy who's dressing up as Jesus is wearing a robe, and I would be like, oh, that's drag. If I wanted to, if I was just like a piece of shit governor, I could just do that, right? And then if I did that, I would draft that into law, and then now, if I wanted to, I can go into any church and specifically target churches and say, well, listen, you're not allowed to have kids here. If you want to do this play, that's perfectly fine, but you're not allowed to have kids here. In fact, also, this is crazy, but you guys also have Christmas parades, right? Yeah, you can't have those either because there's going to be kids there. So yeah, you're going to have to shut down that. And then all of a sudden, the left is going to have their little talking points. Well, all of a sudden, the state of Tennessee said that you can't be sexual and graphic in front of children. And all of a sudden, the Christmas pride, not the Christmas pride, but the Christmas parades get shut down. Oh, so you can't be sexual or graphic in front of children, and now you're shutting, you see how that works. So that happened in Florida. That's happening in Tennessee, where people are canceling their pride parades because of these laws, and then conservatives are like, oh, well, you're being told that you can't be sexual in front of children, and all of a sudden you cancel your parade. Well, maybe you shouldn't be sexual in front of children. No, you're just defining drag as sexual. That's the issue. I could define anything as sexual and then say that you avoiding it is because you're avoiding being sexual in front of children. Christmas pride, yeah.
And of course, the people respond.
I just like to point out, like, this guy's a bumbling idiot. Like, holy fuck, this guy has like nothing. Like, you see this thing right here? Like, yeah, there's nothing in there. This guy's a fucking idiot. I don't even know. Whatever.
The law Senate Majority Leader Jack Johnson said he's disappointed in the ruling. He hopes that the Tennessee Attorney General would appeal the decision, and the Attorney General better appeal it. This is a ridiculous ruling.
Why? Why is it ridiculous?
Absolutely.
What do you have against the content of the ruling, Matthew?
Absurd. And this needs to go all the way to the Supreme Court.
See, they just want to utilize the Supreme Court because they know it's conservative. It's just going to increase their risks that they're going to rule in their favor, even if there's not really good argument for it.
First, it's like we're once again acting like we don't understand what the word obscene means, or like there's some sort of ambiguity here. There really isn't.
Wait, hold on. What is obscene, Matt? Let's let's have like a documentary called "What is Obscenity?" What is an obscene performance? And then like just go up and ask people what obscenity is, and then they'll just define it. And then I show them like the most like common like drag queen who's like dressed head to toe like Queen Elizabeth, and they're like, "Is that obscene?" And then like 99% of people will be like, "No," but Matt Walsh will be like, "Yes," just because it's a boy wearing girls' clothes.
And in this case, it's pretty specific.
No, actually, it's not. That's actually one of the reasons why it was struck down, is because it's not specific. It's extremely vague. That's what a lot of these laws are designed to do. They're designed to be vague, so that way, because if you target specifically, then you're obviously just doing it on the basis of discrimination. So you make them very, very vague, and that's still obvious that you're doing it on discrimination. But now you get to pick and choose if somebody does violate your law, but they're kind of on your side, like Jesus wearing a robe. Then on that basis, like in Utah, for example, the Republicans there wrote a law saying that a parent could challenge a book if it had like obscene material inside of it. And so like just a group of parents decided, hey, there's this thing there's this big book that's like in almost every school district. It's called the fucking Bible. It's extremely obscene. If you look at Genesis, you can look at Lot and his daughters, how the fact that they raped their father in order to impregnate themselves, their drunk father, in order to impregnate themselves. It's a very obscene book. And they successfully got it banned on those merits. The problem was that the state didn't give itself the ability to determine which claims it looked at or not. But in the state of Tennessee, it would go to the attorney general. The attorney general would decide whether they want to prosecute. If it was like a Jesus in a robe, they would just be like, nah. If it was a drag queen, they would be like, yeah. So
it bans sexually explicit performances.
Yeah, it bans sexually explicit performances, which is already banned in Tennessee prior to this bill. It would have captured 100% of drag queens that were being sexually explicit. It bans that, but it just says that drag is inherently sexual. It's just, hold on, I just get like a random fucking picture. I don't know. It's just saying that this fucking guy right here is just inherently sexual. Like this is just sexual, guys. Like, it just bans this. He can host a comedy show. Just safe, like, all family, friend, brunch and stuff. But, like, that would be seen as sexual. Because this is a girl who's dressing up as who is a drag queen. I'm sorry, a drag king. This is sexual to Matt. Why? Are you horny? Is that why you see it as sexual, Matt? Let me know.
In front of children. It mentions adult cabaret performances. Like that's pretty specific.
Yeah, it's pretty specific when you just define adult cabaret performances as whatever you want.
Okay, and it's intended to outlaw a certain kind of performance in front of kids.
Yeah, drag specifically, even if it's not sexually explicit, even if it's age appropriate.
And in 99.9% of cases, we all know exactly what that is. So we always get hung up in the gray area. Well, if this law is put into effect, then what about all these other unrelated things that might get caught up in it? There's not much of that. The gray area here is very, very small. There's always going to be a gray area in any law.
He's not making an argument here against this. He hasn't made a single argument against this bill. He has no contention with the bill. I mean, not the bill, the ban of the bill. He has no contention. He doesn't even understand the contents of the judge's rulings. It's actually pretty funny.
Okay, there are always going to be cases where the enforcement is a bit ambiguous. That happens with any law at all.
Yeah, like if you were attorney general, you would only go after drag queens. Matt, it's ambiguous, yeah.
But with this one, that's extremely limited.
And by the way, like what he's saying isn't even true, by the way. We look at like Montana. We just looked at that 2 streams ago, where a trans woman was hosting a reading club in a library. And because Montana had just passed a anti-drag story hour bill, and then define it as like male, female impersonators, the library canceled the event because they didn't want to get like their funding taken away from the state because a trans person, they weren't even in drag. They were not a drag queen. They were just going to read a story. It wasn't a sexually explicit. They were all like everything business attire. Nothing was age inappropriate there. They were just like, well, this person's trans and therefore we're going to cancel him. By the way, they only did that because like a bunch of Nazis were like, hey, this trans person is like trying to read to our kids. And they sent that to the library and the library canceled the event because of the law that passed. And Zoe Zephyr, who was the only trans person in that legislative body, was telling the legislature, if you pass this bill, you are going to discriminate against trans people. And then the fucking Republican woman stood up. She was like, yeah, actually, this has nothing to do with trans people.
Additionally, this bill goes beyond drag. Yes, as my representative in the back said, to other art forms, but it also targets trans people. There is a bill going forward in the Senate that discusses...
Chair recognizes Majority Leader Vinton.
Mr. Chair, I would ask that comments be kept to this bill and this bill only.
Thank you. So the bill itself says it bans male or female impersonators. There is a potential that this could be interpreted as banning trans people specifically.
Chair recognizes Majority Leader Vinton.
Mr. Chair, this bill has nothing to do with the transgender community, and I can do this all day as well.
Please keep it to the bill.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. I will just remain to say that I would look at the term for male and female impersonator. It is not defined in this bill, and I believe that it is worth the body's time to think about who might be included in that description.
The first person to be attacked by that bill was a trans woman. That's crazy.
Anything else that gets caught up in it, it's probably for the best anyway.
Yeah, I bet, huh?
The 1-year anniversary of Roe v. Wade.
Yeah, this guy's a fucking idiot.